said today will be said, and then you can perhaps take it from there. Okay. We have a development that I think is extremely significant in history, as well as what concerns our times and prophecy and whatnot, and that is that England decided to break away from the European Union. All right, and I know there's a lot of opinion about what this is all about, but let me just start off by reading this little bit to you for educational purposes, so you'll understand about the European Union and also what the Christian view has been concerning the European Union for, well, ever since there has been one, since 1957, year of my birth. All right. The European Union started as the European Economic Community back in 1957 with France, West Germany, Italy, and the Benelux countries, a total of 6. Denmark, Ireland, and the UK joined in 1973. The group of 9 was also referred to as the common market in Christian circles. This union of European countries was pointed out by Hal Lindsey and others as proof that the Roman Antichrist was coming and would come out of Europe. It was to be the revived, that is, Roman Empire. Greece was its 10th member in 1981. And I remember in the 1970s how people talked about this. They said they just need one more country, and they've got those 10 toes of Daniel too. So when Greece came in 1981, everybody said, here it is. Here it is, okay? But over the 1980s and 90s, potential fulfillments of the Roman Antichrist scenario began to disintegrate. The Soviet Union went away and the EU grew in size. The EU today has 28 member nations. It's kind of a freaky looking creature. It's got 28 toes, right? Okay? That's a tad over the 10 that were called for in Daniel chapter 2 and in Daniel 7, the 10 horns. Okay, so there's some holes in this Roman Antichrist scenario. That's the problem. Okay, and theologians have to get themselves together now and figure out, what are we going to do? I know there's some that are still trying to hold on to that 10-nation thing. I caught something this morning where there was the Herbert W. Armstrong folks are trying to say, well, Britain is Ephraim anyway, and they're not supposed to be a part of it, so no problem. See, they're still trying to hold on to this idea, right? But there's holes in all that, all right? It doesn't hold weight. Daniel 2:40 and Daniel 9:26 do not support a Roman Antichrist, but an Islamic Antichrist. Okay? If British citizens vote to leave the EU, of course this was written before it happened. This was written just prior because everybody was talking about the vote that was coming up on Thursday. All right? But this is what could happen. Theologically, this could be seen to Roman Antichrist theory supporters as another crack in the whole Roman school of thought. The UK was a part of the old Roman Empire, and now would not be part of the revived empire. So what are you going to do? See? There are some in that school of thought that see Illuminati, Bilderbergs, Rothschilds, etc., based in Britain, no longer part of the revived empire either. All right, now there's a problem. You see, England and Germany and France are the richest of the Union. So if England pulls out, it's like you're losing a major foundation to the economic support. Okay, the nation known as the Pigs is an acronym for Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. Those are the weaker countries that they've been supporting. So now that England has pulled out, it looks as though the entire European Union may collapse completely. All right. So let me give you some thoughts about that as to where the future is going. Okay? Did a study on the demographics. On a demographic study. Make sure my notes are all together. Here we go. Demographics. Demographic studies on where we are heading in the future. Okay? Now this is science. This is demographics. A culture has to produce 2.11 children per family in a generation, or they will cease to be in 25 years. Okay? This is science. There is no culture that has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. Okay? A 1.3 fertility rate would take 80 to 100 years to reverse, and it's impossible to do that. Okay? If you only have 1 million children born, like say in 2016, then by the time we get to 2036, you're not going to have 2 million to enter the workforce. Okay? As of 2006, this was a demographic that was done 10 years ago. Listen to this. Demographics from 2006. These are the fertility rates of the European countries. France was 1.8. Remember what I said? You have to have 2.11 to survive. If you're 1.3, you're gone. Okay? France was 1.8. England was 1.6. Greece, 1.3. Germany, 1.3. Italy, 1.2. Spain, 1.1. The overall growth of 31 countries in the European Union has been 1.38. 1.38, 10 years ago. Okay? This is impossible to reverse. In other words, European culture is gone in the future. It's gone. But the population in Europe is not declining. You know why? Immigration. Immigration. 90% of the immigration has been Muslims. And you know what their growth rate is? Average 8.1. 8.1 compared to like 1.6 and 1.3. Okay, because they've got multiple wives and they're having like 15, 20 children a family. Okay, get this. 30% of the children 10 years ago, age 20 and younger, were Muslims. And in the larger countries, that percentage was 45%. Okay? They say by 2027, 1 in 5 Frenchmen will be Muslim. And by 2045, France will be an Islamic republic. This is where the future is. So this whole idea about a European Union, it's not a European thing. It's going to be an Islamic thing. You see? Prophecy does not require a Roman Antichrist. It's a Muslim Antichrist. All right? In Britain, from 1986 to 2006, the Muslim population went from 82,000 to 2.5 million. Okay? That's a 30-fold increase. And there are now over 1,000 mosques in Britain, and many of them were former churches. These are demographics. These are facts that cannot be reversed. In the Netherlands, 50% of the newborns are Muslims. Half of the newborns are Muslims. And by 2021, half of the Netherlands population will be completely Muslim. That's just a few years away. Okay? In Russia, there are 23 million Muslims. That's 1 in 5 Russians. That's over 40% of Russian. Over 40% of the Russian army are Muslims. Okay. So, I could go on. They say that by 2050, there just isn't going to be a European. It's gone. As a matter of fact, the same statistics are true for America, for Canada, and the United States. We're done. We are going to be a Muslim country by 2050. That's the demographics. Okay? Now, who do we have for president? A Muslim. This whole thing is plot. It's been going on for quite a while. You know, and there's such ultimate power that's been given to this particular president. People don't understand how he can do what he does. But do you remember when Yeshua said, Satan's hour has come, but when Judas betrayed him, that hour of darkness had come and it was done. There's nothing that could be done about it because Yah had said, this is what's going to be. All right? That's why there's so much power given to this man and to this system right now that cannot be reversed by Congress. It's a mystifying thing to them. They don't know how he's able to do this, but he does it. Because the power comes from somewhere else. It's much greater than any man. Back in 2009, I printed this out off the internet. Back in 2009, a little clip written by a Jewish writer. Get this. In response to the overwhelming rejection, remember, this is back 7 years ago. In response to the overwhelming rejection by Americans to give their lives over to President Barack Hussein Obama and his Nazi Progressive Democratic Party, the president ordered his goons from the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, to go around the nation to break heads at Nazi Progressive Democratic Party congressional town hall meetings. Yeah. It started in Tampa Bay and in St. Louis. Last night, he says, when the SEIU thugs got violent with Americans who are afraid of being killed by Obamacare. Our president, his most magnificent and merciful, Barack Hussein Obama, peace be upon him, told his cult followers to get in their face and defend his fellow Nazi progressive Democrats at their town hall meetings from their own constituents as they tried to peddle Obama's lies about his health care plan. Right? This was going on just 7 years ago when he first became president. Okay? Something you didn't hear about in the media, but he sent thugs out to get violent when people were having town hall meetings like in St. Louis, coming against his Obamacare. Okay? Kind of thing that Hitler would do, right? With his Gestapo. All right, listen to this. The European Union. Oh yeah, I read that. Time to go over here now. I got so many things. Bear with me. I got so many thoughts. I told you, I got to pull all this together. I watched a film. I didn't watch the whole thing because it's an hour and a half. I didn't have time to watch it with all the buffering going on in our household. I recommend that you go and watch a video on YouTube. It's excellent, an excellent expose. It's called Final Warning. Obama and Pope Francis will bring biblical end times. It's worth watching. They pulled clips together from over the last 7, 8 years of things that have been going on in the news, and it's worth the watch. Quite educational. It helps to remind you of some of the things you've already known and seen, and you might even learn some things you have not seen and known of what's going on. Obama has been compared to Hitler by many in the media. Why is that? Many similarities. Hitler was elected in a democratic Germany. It was a democratic country. And slowly but surely, over time, he became the dictator. Okay? He did it slowly over a 5-year period of time. Perry Stone, y'all know who he is. Okay? Jewish teacher. He said that he has sat down and spoken with 3 different German Jewish women in their 80s who have all said to the effect, something to this nature, that Nazi Germany is all happening all over again in America, okay? And that most people are just not seeing what's happening, okay? But from their perspective, as children, while Hitler was taking over in Germany, they remember, and they're seeing it now as older women in their 80s. They're watching. He said he took notes of 15 things that they told him that are identical to what Obama's been doing, from healthcare reform to gun control to the complete takeovers. Let me give you a list of some of these comprehensive, this is a comprehensive list of some of the executive orders that our president has put into force. Okay? This is executive orders are where he just writes, right? Doesn't go through Congress. He just changes the law. What does Daniel 7:25 say about the anti-Messiah? He will change times and the law. Okay? One of the characteristics of the anti-Messiah. Executive Order number 10990 allows our government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. Executive Order number 10995 allows our government to seize and control the communication media. Executive Order number 10997 allows this government to take over all electrical power and gas, fuels, and minerals. 11001 allows our government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. 11005 allows our government to take over all airports and aircraft. Or 1103. 1104 allows Housing and Finance Authority to relocate and establish new locations. 11005 allows our government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. Quite clearly, Obama is planning for a total control and takeover of America via martial law. I mean, what do? What else is there? Food, energy, transportation, work, banking, health. He's got it all covered. He's been working on changing it slowly. Right? He comes in as a man of peace. Do you know that Hitler was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939? Can you imagine? Hitler got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939. Now get this. Exactly 70 years later, Obama, October 9th, 2009, gets the Nobel Peace Prize. 70 years later. Interesting. By the way, that day was Tishri 21. It's the day they call Hoshana Rabbah, which means Hosanna in the highest. Okay. Let's take a look at some scriptures. I think I want to take a look at some scriptures. Let's open up your Bible. Let's see if I can go back over and take a look at some of the scriptures that you can keep in mind. Look at Matthew 24 first. I want to give you a cheery note first before we go into some of these other things. I think we need to remember and be encouraged by this in our times. Matthew 24, verse 29. Okay? Through 31. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay? Now turn to Philippians chapter 2. And we need to be edified by these things. Mom, right? Edification, very important. All right? In the light of all these things, look at Philippians 2. I hold on to these things right here. Look at this. Verse 9. Wherefore Elohim also has highly exalted him, speaking of Yeshua, and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Yeshua every knee should bow, of things in heaven, and things in earth, and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Yeshua, the Messiah, is Lord. Or as it says in Aramaic, Maryah, which is the equivalent to Yahweh in the Hebrew. They will declare him who he is. He is Yah, Maryah, to the glory of Elohim the Father. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess. And you all know I've been counting something, and I'm still holding on to this. I'm not going to say for certain that I'm right, because we're getting very close. And we're going to know here in a few weeks, actually, whether or not I'm right or not. But there are many that have been watching and studying the Daniel's timeline. And the count that I have been counting started with October 9th, 2009. The day that Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize. Because Scripture says in Daniel 9:27 that he will confirm the covenant for 1 week. All right, what confirmation was he giving? He said that he would be a man of peace when he came into the presidency. And then he confirms it by taking the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay? Yes, we can. And all that. Right? The count goes for 7 years, and it's 7 prophetic years, which are 360 days long. And if you split it in half, it's 1,260 and 1,260. Exactly 1,260 days after October 9th, 2009, March 21st, 2013. Turn to Daniel and you'll see what I'm talking about. Look at Daniel. Daniel chapter 9. He shall confirm the covenant with the many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. All right? What is sacrifice and oblation in our modern day? We don't have killing of animals, blood being spilled. The sacrifice is praise, it's prayers, it's worship. Paul talks about your reasonable sacrifice in Romans 12, that you become a living sacrifice. Your reasonable service is to be a living sacrifice. It's about worship. That's what it always has been. On that day, March 21st, 2013, was actually the day begins March 21st in the evening. The very next day, the 22nd, is when he went into a holy place in Bethlehem, what's known as the Church of the Nativity, a place that's reverenced by many around the world as the place where Yeshua was born, a place where people come and they worship and they pray. I've been there. It's a very solemn place. On that day, no one could go in. No one except Obama and his entourage from Washington, D.C. No one was allowed to go in and worship when he went in to see this place, this spot of his birth. Could this be the fulfillment of Daniel 9:27, where it says he put away sacrifice in the middle of the seventh? Well, the math works. If October 9th was the beginning of the count, 1,260 days exactly, 1,260 days forward, because it would begin, that day would have begun what was considered the 1,260 days of tribulation. Do you know that no massive beheadings were taking place until after March 21st, 2013? All this news about beheadings going on by ISIS, it didn't happen until after March 21st, 2013. The world is seeing a tribulation. Worldwide, we're seeing incredible things. You know the sound of the shofar that people still can't understand? They hear this bog, what is this thing they call? It kind of sounds like a foghorn that's been heard in different places, and mysteriously people don't know where it's coming from, and they've heard it all over the place. The shofars are blowing. It's a mysterious phenomenon that no one can explain. We're hearing shofars. We're hearing the sound. Okay? Fish, even recently, I found out. Fish by tons, and birds still falling from the skies. Fish being washed up on different parts of beaches around the world. Indonesia just had some massive number of fish that just got washed up again. And birds that have fallen from the sky, and animals that are just dying. In fulfillment of Zephaniah chapter 1, that talks about how the animals themselves will begin to die as a sign of the end times. Things are happening all around us, but people are like ostriches putting their heads in the sand, or like frogs in a boiling pot as things continue to get worse and worse. They're not noticing that this is it. It's happening. They're still waiting for some kind of great sign. Some kind of, what else are you going to, what more do you want than 4 blood moons on feast days occurring 3 times in 70 years? In 1948, 1967, and then just last year. What more? What do you want? How many signs do you need? Heaven is screaming that we're in the last days. Do you know that Obama became the first U.S. president in history to have a chair in the UN Security Council? That's unprecedented. When does a president become a member of the UN Security Council? Do you know what that does? Do you know what kind of power he has? That makes him in charge of all the armies that are associated with the UN. That's kind of a conflict of interest, being the President of the United States, don't you think? I mean, our shores should be protected against foreign invasions, but he's in charge of all the armies that are associated with the UN now. How did that happen? Daniel 8:24. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And verse 25 says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. And I love this part. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Don't think Obama's the anti-Messiah? You don't think the Pope is the false prophet? Let me give you some quotes of this recent Pope. The Pope has said that evolution is true, and has even made the statement in reference that God is not a magician. You know, we don't want to believe the stories of the Bible the way they're written, because it would lend to the idea that perhaps God is some sort of a magician, Pope Francis said. Okay? He teaches that the Bible stories are mythical. You know, Adam and Eve, Ark, silly little stories. Okay? He says that Jesus is not a spirit. He is a man. How you like that? Huh? He says that atheists can make it to heaven just by being good people. Atheists don't have to believe in God. They can go to heaven too. Okay? Homosexuals are cool. Hey, all right with me, says the Pope. No problem. Don't think he's the false prophet? Let me give you some information about Obama to help you understand who he is. Scripture tells us in Revelation 13 that his number is 666, and it takes wisdom. It takes wisdom. It takes studying out to find out what that means, to understand. Okay? Here are some points to consider. Obama was born August 4th, 1961. That's the 216th day of the year. 216 is the product of 6 times 6 times 6. If Obama lives to the end of his second term, he will have entered into his 666th month of life. By the way, I didn't just read this stuff. I've done the math to figure it out myself, and it's true. He was born in August of 1961. You want to do the math yourself, you figure it out. In January of 2017, it'll be his 666th month of life. Okay? Although he was born in Kenya, Obama claims to be born in Hawaii, a beast to rise up out of the sea, according to Revelation 13:1. Which has a latitude, Hawaii has a latitude of 21.6. There's that 216 figure again. Do you know when he was a senator in Illinois that his zip code was 60606? Okay? On November 5th, 2008, the night after Obama was first elected, the pick 3 for the lotto in Illinois, the state where he was senator, was 666. And the pick 4 was 7779. Mathematicians have done statistical studies on this. They say that the statistics of this sequence of numbers falling on the night after Obama's election in his home state is said to be 1 in 3,650,000,000, which is a statistical impossibility.